Hello, this is Zach Brooks with World Transplant Athletes. Tips and tricks by and for transplant athletes anywhere, anytime, and of course, online. If you have a body with a new part and you can move, you are a World Transplant Athlete. As a two-time kidney transplant recipient and frequent participant at local, national, and world games, I always wonder, how do other recipients take care of their bodies and prepare for competitions? Well, for me, there's only one way to find out, and that's to talk and learn from the most inspiring transplant athletes in the world. Today, I have Donna Hart from Canada with me to share her tips. Donna, nice to see you. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks, Zach. Thanks for asking me to join this. I'm quite excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So Donna is, for anyone who doesn't know Donna, I'll get to brag about her a little bit. She probably would never do this herself. What she's so wonderful at is connecting people to other people. And she has sort of an instinct, like if there's two people with sort of in the same orbit, they should know each other. Like she has such a beautiful instinct to connect others. So I really enjoy Donna's ability and desire to want to make people connected in this world. So it's really fantastic. So Donna, what I like to do is I like to warm guests up by having the audience members know you through just a few basic questions. So it's okay if I ask you a few questions?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So question number one, which transplant did you have?
I had a heart transplant, 2015.
2015. Wow. Donna Hart has a heart transplant. What was the cause of the heart failure?
Post-mortem, it was sarcoiditis, but pre-post-mortem, they thought I had giant cell myocarditis. Didn't have, really any heart disease, and thought I needed a puffer. And 6 weeks later, I was listed for a heart.
Wow. Your life changed quickly, huh?
Yeah. Like it was, well, not funny, but funny. But like on a Tuesday, I swam like 2.2 kilometers, and Sunday I was in cardiac ICU.
Yeah, that's just stunning.
I was pretty out of breath during that swim, and yeah, I was pretty out of breath. It's amazing I didn't kill myself.
Wow. But you got a nice swim in before you're...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes it all worthwhile. So the next question I have for you, if you had to summarize your transplant journey in one word, what would it be?
Hard. I would say, I can't say it in one word, but recovering from heart transplant, bar none, is the hardest thing I've ever done.
I mean, it seems obvious from someone who hasn't had that, but is the physical, the mental, like, can you summarize that a little bit?
Yeah. So physically, just sheer exhaustion sometimes, the meds and the force that the meds take on your body. Mentally, just sort of like turning your head to the fact that with a heart, someone has died and gifted you this new heart, and that does take a bit of time for you to get your head around. So that, I think those, so a simple thing like going out to the composter, and I have this retaining wall of rocks, and I would get back there, and then I couldn't get myself back out into the house. Like I'd sort of be trapped in the backyard because I just didn't have the mobility or the strength to get up these rocks that I had climbed for years. So physically it was very, very challenging.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for summarizing such a massive kind of thing in a short little bit. That's really incredible. So my next question for you is, what was your first exercise post-transplant, or first anything post-transplant?
I think initially, of course, we all start walking. I had an OT come to the house, and I needed to have a walker because I was so unstable on my feet. So I had my transplant in May, but by June, and I was released from the hospital May 22nd. But in sometime in June, I started riding a bike because it was much easier to ride a bike than it was to walk.
Was it a stationary bike?
No. Oh no, I was on the road riding around my street. But it's crazy because when you have, well, maybe not crazy, but when you have a heart transplant, like, you know where every hill is. And I never knew my street had a slant on it. But as soon as I was going up that slant, man, I knew about it. It is like a 3-meter rise or something. It's not something you would sort of notice with your eyes, but you would think it was a flat route. But yeah. And it's funny because my girlfriends would want to go for a walk with me or something. And I'd say, oh, that's too hilly. Like, there's a hill there. And they're like, I don't see a hill. And I said, trust me, when you're with a heart transplant patient, you will know we know every hill.
So one of the advantages of having a heart transplant is knowing every tiny hill on any road. Okay.
That could, for me, yeah, that is definitely true.
Cool. So then the final question, the warm-up question I have for you, in which activities or sports do you regularly engage, participate?
So at a transplant games, I swim and I cycle. But going forward, I'm just going to move into swimming and not do the cycling anymore for a variety of reasons. But I think one of the things I learned is I need to focus a little bit harder on just one sport. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, cyclists out there know that it is a massive amount of dedication to bring your bicycle from one point in the world to another point. It's more money, more time, more energy, more exhaustion. It's a lot.
Right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Great.
Where the pool is a neutral place.
The pool is a neutral place. Just some goggles and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Wow. So thank you for sharing a little bit about you. So now let's get to the heart of the show, which is where you share your tips. So a couple of weeks ago, you shared your tips with me. So thanks again. And what I like to do is I like to read the tips 1 through 5, and then we'll go back to the top and you walk through those tips for people listening and watching the show. So tip number 1, you say set SMART goals, and SMART you have in capital letters. So I think it's an acronym. So looking forward to that. Number 2, you say motivating music. So that seems obvious, but I'm interested in hearing more. Number 3, you list meditation / relaxation. And I've heard this from another athlete now. I'm interested in finding out why this is important for exercise. Number 4, join a club. And number 5, comparison is the thief of joy. Run your own race. I can't wait to hear more about that. So let's go back to the top and just talk us through why you said number 1 for you, set SMART goals is so important.
So SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goals. So a SMART goal incorporates all of these criteria to help you focus your efforts and increase your chances of achieving your goal. So just being able to sort of break down that goal of whatever it is and make it achievable, as opposed to, I think I will run for the moon. So how are you going to get there? The World Transplant Games has the billion-step challenge. So how are you going to get there? So a measurable goal might be, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day. So that's measurable. It's achievable for many of us. And if it's not, you can just dial that back a bit. It's realistic. And you've got a timeline, usually when you're going into an event, you've got a timeline of when you want to achieve that by.
Okay, thank you. Can you say the acronym again? So it's specific.
SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely.
Okay, good. Yeah, I like this type of tip because it's very much applied knowledge, and you can say, okay, how is this specific today? You can think through each of those letters for your life at that moment to give yourself that little ability to go from point A to point B. Yeah, I really like that. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So tip number 2, you have listed motivating music. Why is that important to you?
So I use motivating music even when I'm not exercising. And so I would listen to songs that sort of pump me up. And because I don't listen to music when I'm cycling, and of course, not when I'm swimming, but I can play that soundtrack in my head. And it for me, it helps me keep going. At the same time, when I'm like through the house, like, listening to this music, I visualize myself in the event. One thing I learned while I was waiting for my transplant was that visualization can really help you achieve your goal. And honestly, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it at first, but it honestly works. Because I remember when I was competitive canoeing, and that was back in 1992, the coach telling us this, and I was like so skeptical. But it really does work. If you can picture yourself on the podium, that's where you will end up. Somehow it just, you're training and everything because you're visualizing it, and you've got smart goals in place. It just moves you in that direction that you want to go.
Wow.
Don't ask me how it works. I don't really know, but I just know it works. Yeah.
So when you said motivating music and you talked about it, listening to music before, and then you get in the pool, it reminds me of this concept, at least that I have, maybe it's probably out there somewhere else, that you experience something in life 3 times: before, during, and after. So if you're listening to the music, then you experience that music again in the pool. And then after the pool, it reminds you of maybe where you were in your 1,000-meter swim or whatever amount of swimming.
Yes.
So you get to experience the swimming through the music or cycling or anything else multiple times. And that multi-layered experience actually helps you get to where you want to go. Okay, that's such a deep, on the surface, it's such an easy kind of goal, but it's actually really has a lot of depth.
And you have to believe, and I think that that's the hardest part about it, is that you have to believe that it really works. Because if you're skeptical, it's not going to. But I would suggest to people that they just look back in their life and think of things or times when they thought about something happening and then it really did happen for them. And they didn't know how or why, but it did. And that would be your starting point of realizing that, yeah, this can happen. I mean, motivating music, one of the songs, everybody's going to have their own different song, but I would listen to, I think it's like Queen, Freddie Mercury sings Mr. Fahrenheit, and it's about him being on fire and not being able to be caught. And for me, it just real, I mean, I can picture myself riding my bike, as I say this, riding my bike and playing that soundtrack over my head. Or Imagine Dragons, and the guy sings a song about people not believing that he could do this, but here he is. And again, like that, for me, it's just not that anyone didn't believe I could do it. But for me, it's like, don't put yourself in the back of the stands, put yourself at the front.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. It's really inspirational.
Thank you.
Tip number 3, you have meditation and relaxation. Why is that important for you?
Because you can get too overwhelmed and start feeling stressed that you're not going where you need to go. Like it's easy to get too obsessed with the plan. And I think, everybody needs to sort of step back, relax, and focus. Because if you can't focus, you're not going to be able to achieve your goals. And so just step back, stop ruminating about what's going on, and just relax and be in the moment. And when you're competing, you really do need to be in the moment, and you really just need to be focused on yourself and not who's behind you or who's in front of you and what they're doing, but what are you doing?
Yeah. So I wrote a book, and in the book I wrote about this concept. Again, maybe someone else has written it before, but there's 3 types of learning. There's learning something the brand new time, relearning, so going back and learning again, and then unlearning. And this one falls into the category for me of relearning. And I talked about this the other day with another interview, that you constantly have to remind yourself to, stay in that moment and enjoy what you're doing. So this is like a tip to constantly remind yourself to do what you know. You know what to do,
Yes.
but you do what you know.
Yes.
It's a really important tip. So thank you, Donna. That's amazing.
Yeah. It really is about taking the time, and you kind of, and not be like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be watching, or doing whatever. I should be out, practicing. But really the relaxation is just as important as the practicing.
Excellent. Thank you, Donna. So the next tip you have is join a club. Why?
Mm-hmm. So I found joining a club, whatever club that you're interested in, you're going to make connections with people, and these people will be your cheerleaders. And quite honestly, they're the people who told me that I could do what I didn't think was possible. It was a friend of mine cycling who, when I told her I was cycling, she said, well, you should go for records. I was just like, I thought just participating was enough. But apparently not. And I say that jokingly, but that put the idea in my head that I could hope for more. And I wasn't just sort of working in a vacuum. I mean, these people came out to my meets, they supported me. It just made a world of difference. Yeah, and I just can't say enough about joining a club. Like, it really does help you move along, and you're not feeling like you're doing this alone.
Yeah, the power of community.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So now the final tip is the one, when I read this the first time, I was the most excited about, and I have to read it again because, as a writer, I love the way you've used words here. So comparison is the thief of joy. Run your own race. Talk about that. Why is that so important for you?
So, like, as a woman, women are brought up, and we're in Canada, we're socialized to be always comparing ourselves to other women. And it was actually a friend of mine who said that, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is so true. And also, you're looking at people when you're in a competition, and these people have maybe come ahead of you, and maybe you're not happy with your time, or not necessarily not happy with your time. That's not the right thing to say. You're just not happy with where you placed, because you're comparing yourself to them, as instead of looking at what were you doing in your training and how did that compare on race day? Like, did you have a good race? Because if you were used to cycling 19 kilometers an hour, and everybody who you cycled with came in at 25, but you did 20, like, I would argue you had a really good day. So don't compare yourself to the 25 group. And just like looking around and thinking, like, I don't know, like, it's just so, I guess I would say it really is a thief of joy. Like, it just really takes away instead of adding to what we can do on our own. Mm-hmm. Looking at someone else and saying, I want to be there, unless that's inspirational, that's taking away from what you could be doing. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's not moving you forward.
Yeah, it's like,
does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And what I'm visualizing is you have a bag of water, and there's a little drip out the bottom, and the bag of water represents joy, but there's some water coming out, and every bit of water that comes out, like, you have less excitement for the thing you actually love to do. If you love to ride your bike, you love to ride your bike. There shouldn't be this other thing going on. So, but it happens, which is nice to remind yourself, and why the tip is really wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much, Donna. That's excellent. So
it was fun.
Good. So thank you so much for being a guest on World Transplant Athletes. For audience people out there, you can log on to Facebook.com, World Transplant Athletes, or Instagram, World Transplant Athletes. World Transplant Athletes, tips and tricks by, such as Donna, by and for transplant athletes, anywhere, anytime, and of course, online. If you have a body with a new part and you can move, you are a world transplant athlete. Donna, this is such a thrill. I love seeing you and talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. It's always good to get together with you too.